before, and then I've talked to him. Hey, folks, welcome back to a brand new show, the Trailer Park Show. We are glad that you're here watching with us here today. It is May 1st. It is May Day. It is also Loyalty Day or something like that going on. It's kind of like the call back against May Day. But we are here. We are glad to have everybody here with us. We have a very special show going on. Before I say anything, I want to say thank you, Isaac, for this wonderful shirt. For anybody that knows Isaac Rolfe and the Man in Me, this is a shirt that I got to get from him just recently as part of the Man Talk experience. It's a sliding plug, Mrs. Pokey. We're not talking about any money. We're okay. So, but wanted to say thank you, Isaac, for this wonderful shirt. It's a great design. If you guys see me, or if you guys are friends with me on Facebook, you get to see all the image on it. That being said, let's go ahead and start what we're talking about today. It's May Day. We're talking about, I guess, solidarity and whatnot. And we have a great group of folks that Anthony has talked to and has met online and in person with at least one person. Recently, we've had some, I guess, in the past couple of months, we saw a rise, I guess, in the anti-Tea Party group, if you will. As I like to call it, the anti-Tea Party. It's the answer to the Tea Party on the Democrat side, on that end. Which is called the Indivisible. And we got to see some of the things that were going on Facebook, people that were reporting on what Indivisible was. And Anthony had the opportunity to bring some great people here on the show. We have here, if I may, we have Ricardo Guerrero. We also have Jana, Kaura. And we also have Josh Hebert. Hebert, my apologies. Yeah, Hebert.
That's all right, Hebert.
And they're part of Indivisible from different parts of the state of Texas, mostly in the central Texas surrounding areas. And we wanted to talk a little bit more about what Indivisible is, because many people have seen, well, I'll put it this way, many of our friends have seen one side. And it's always good to get both sides of the perspective to see what's going on. And you know, we want to be fair and balanced with everybody as much as possible. I know it's a Fox saying, I get it. But we want to be fair. We want to be able to be fair and invite anybody that wants to come on and talk about their mission, their drive. And I've got to say this. I really want to thank you for being on here first and foremost. Not knowing your political affiliations and not wanting to know at this present time. We have asked people that not necessarily think in the same lines that maybe myself and Pokey and Anthony do. We have invited several people to come on the show, and all of them have refused. Well, I mean, you got myself and Pokey, you guys have seen Pokey. I'll put it this way: if you haven't met Pokey, he's our dump truck driver with a rubber hose up his nose. That's the way he explains himself. But he when we've invited people on the show, they basically say, thanks, but no thanks. And we're very honored and very happy to have you guys here to talk about Indivisible. So, yep. Anthony.
So just some background. As people know, I'm on Facebook a lot, and I'm an activist in the Pflugerville area. So I comment a lot to my representative, which is Bill Flores in District 17. And you know, I heard about Indivisible on TV, but really didn't know what they were all about. And so Ricardo invited me a few months back to join his group, Action Indivisible Texas.
So it's Indivisible TX17 because that's our congressional
Right. And you know, I thought it was a place of debate, and anybody that knows me, I love to debate. And I think I almost got kicked out probably 3 times. I don't know. So the third time, I talked to Ricardo on the side and said, hey, you know, I really don't know what the group is all about. They haven't really explained themselves. So I invited him to the show, and he invited 2 other guests from TX25. And so we just want to get to know you guys a little bit better, give you a forum for explaining a little bit more about how you guys got started with the movement. I guess you started with the election, so I guess we can start there. And I got a few clips that we'll go over about the election, and then I got some other clips from the correspondence dinner of this last weekend. You know, it's where the president usually goes and talks to the correspondents. Well, the president skipped out this year, but they still had it, and so there's some funny clips there that if we get to it, we can play. So let's go back to election night and play clip number 2. And then I'll ask you about what happened with the election and tell me about the Indivisible.
4 polls that have Clinton up by more than 10 points. True landslide in a long time. A double-digit lead for Hillary Clinton in Pennsylvania.
Actually, the AP now projecting that Donald Trump has won the state of Pennsylvania.
That is the race.
Out of Ohio, Donald Trump doing a little better here, but he is still down in Ohio, a 5-point gap. So again,
we have a major projection right now. Donald Trump will take Ohio.
another one, brand new NBC Marist poll out of Iowa today. Again, a little bit closer, but a 4-point lead for Hillary Clinton.
CNN projects Donald Trump will win the state of Iowa.
We don't have new polls today, but Wisconsin, Michigan, these are other states Donald Trump has talked about flipping with the Rust Belt strategy. We have not seen a poll that puts him ahead in these states.
CNN now projects that Donald Trump will carry the state of Wisconsin. He cracked the so-called blue wall that Hillary Clinton had tried to create.
So again, the bird.
Say, Kristen Welker standing by at Clinton headquarters to talk to us. Kristen, am I correct that we're going to hear from John Podesta, assumed from the podium?
Well, here's what we know, Brian. He is headed over here. What's significant about that is that the Clinton campaign has largely gone dark.
5 races that are either too close or too early to call.
For Donald Trump this evening, 228, 209.
Have now confirmed that Secretary Clinton has conceded to Donald Trump. This concession took place in a phone call.
Right now, a historic moment. We can now project the winner of the presidential race. CNN projects Donald Trump wins the presidency. Donald Trump elected president of the United States.
This is a political upset of huge, huge magnitude. Again, Secretary Clinton conceding to Donald Trump this evening.
Whenever we talk about something presidential, oddly enough, I will tell you this much right now. Whenever we talk something presidential, something always happens. I don't know why it happens. I don't know if it's just because of the gremlins that are here in the building.
It's the NSA.
There you go. There you go. Thanks.
It's me magic is what it is.
Let me try one more time.
Could be the volume on her laptop. I'm not sure.
One more time. Here we go. Here we go. There we go. I see it. Oh, wait. There we go. Somebody's got some interesting files on there. Anyway, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Indivisible. So tell us a little bit about what's Indivisible, and how did you guys get involved with the group?
I can start. So, Indivisible started from some former congressional staffers. Several of them, I understand, worked for Lloyd Doggett. And during the 2009 season when the Tea Party kind of really came out in a big way, in fact, they talk about how they were at an HEB and there were Tea Party folks protesting, and some of them were being pretty disrespectful, spitting on staffers and that kind of thing. But after the election, they kind of got together and were talking about, well, what do we do now? And they kind of looked back and said, the Tea Party, besides being good at mobilizing media, was actually pretty effective in taking a lot of power into the Republican Party and changing the direction of a lot of politics in the country. What can we learn from the Tea Party? And I would question calling us the anti-Tea Party, because that's not really what we're about. Mm-hmm. Yes, we're using some of the same tactics, potentially, of holding our representatives accountable, right, trying to do media, trying to do protest, those kind of things. But at the same time, we're very much about being respectful, mm-hmm, as opposed to what I described earlier of spitting on staffers. That's not anything you're going to find people from Indivisible doing. But basically it's that, it's saying, how do we make sure that we mobilize folks to call our representatives and really push our agenda? And if they're calling potentially a representative that agrees with their politics more, or is more of a Democrat potentially, then calling them still and stealing their spine, saying, hey, we really need you to to push this type of thing or be opposed to that type of thing. Really, I think that in the end, these staffers ended up writing something called the Indivisible Guide. Mm-hmm. And they posted it in December, and immediately it just took off. They didn't know what was really going to happen.
Okay.
They didn't know what was going to happen, but thousands of people started to download it and ask, well, okay, how do we put this into practice? And I got on board because a friend in Central Austin said, hey, there's going to be this meeting of this Indivisible Austin group to oppose the Trump agenda. Okay, that's really the way they kind of phrase it, is opposing the Trump agenda.
Mm-hmm.
I preferred it to, because we're seeing a lot of similar policies that we're opposed to in the state of Texas, so I prefer to say we're opposing the authoritarian agenda. And so that kind of is both at the state and the federal level. And it's not just around one person. It's not, hey, if Trump were to leave, were to be impeached, and Mike Pence is pushing this, well, we're against the Pence agenda. Well, why change the name? We're against the authoritarian agenda. So there were about 150 people that met at North Austin at a church on the first Saturday in January. There were probably about 10 or 12 of us from District 17. So there's a lot fewer of us in District 17 in Austin. You know, the way Austin is gerrymandered and cut up into six, 5 centrally plus Williamson County, 6 districts. 17 is only a little tiny bit of Austin. Yep. But there was a lot of folks from other districts, and so we started kind of organizing around congressional districts at that meeting, and I kind of because I helped to get the website going, I helped to get the Facebook and Twitter going, and
would
so
you say I know you're the admin of the group. Are you the leader?
I'm one of the leaders. Yeah,
okay,
and that's why I was going to mention is I kind of became by default by doing the work. I started becoming one of the leaders. So that's been my involvement, is trying to organize these groups and organize them. And now we've spun off. We have an Indivisible Bryan College Station group, and so they're pretty active as well in their section. We have a separate group. Some of the leadership of that group from Waco is involved in our TX17, Indivisible TX17 group, but they've remained pretty separate. Although they have monthly meetings, they're very active as well. They're called the Centex Action Network, or CAN, in Waco. So we're proposing to be district-wide because we are the people. The core theme of the Indivisible Guide is that members of Congress really only care about one thing: being reelected. And the only people who it matters what their opinion is the people who can vote for them. If you're outside of their district, you can scream all day, you can call them every day, but unless you're going to give them money, they don't really care what you think. So it's our responsibility in Texas 17 to hold Bill Flores accountable. And so that's kind of our main mission. And additionally, if there's other things going on in the state or at the federal level that we can potentially influence. But our main mission, because we're the only ones who can vote for Flores, so it's our job to hold Flores accountable in that way.
I'm active in a number of nonprofits. So all nonprofits need some kind of money to keep on going. And how are you sponsored, or where did your funds come from?
We have no funds at this point.
You have a like the website. I tried to look up who hosts that, and it was a proxy service. So, I mean, is it under your name or?
No, another volunteer registered the domain and started the website for us. So he bought the domain, and I don't know how he's hosting it, but he's turned over the keys basically because he's too busy to keep doing it. And pretty much we don't really have. I mean, we really don't have much that we need any funding for, and when it's just $10 here, $10 there, I'll usually pay for it out of my pocket. But there's not any formal. We don't have a formal entity. We don't have a formal legal entity. We don't have a bank account.
I thought I saw on indivisibleguide.com they said that they were a 501c4, so that's social welfare. So you don't have to report. I mean, they collect donations, right? So it's going to somebody.
Well, it's also new. I mean, I think the 501c4 was just last month, maybe a month and a half ago. I mean, we're such a grassroots organization, and so many of us are so new.
Yeah, all of it started in January. I mean, we're in May, and we're talking about the first weekend of January. So we're just a couple February, months March, in at this April, point. Pretty much 3.5 months old.
It's amazing how quickly the groups have grown. And I went to the Bill Flores town hall, and there were 150 people there. And
in February.
And I go to a lot of community events. My HOA, we'd be lucky to get 10 people. We just did a Pflugerville. I'm also part of Flacona, which is a neighborhood association. We did a school board forum. Maybe we had 50 people. So to have so many people in a short amount of time, it was amazing to see all these people mobilized. So what kind of people, how are you recruiting? Are you looking at Facebook posts and seeing, oh, somebody's posting? That's how I felt like I got recruited.
When I had the time to do so, that's what I was doing to help.
Was that part of the guide to say, hey, go out on the Facebook?
No, it's the guide was very much like, okay, here's how you hold your members of Congress accountable. Now, go and do it. They didn't really provide a framework per se.
I think people have found the groups more than the groups actively went out and recruited at first. I think there was such a feeling of wanting to do something. You know, we've all been sitting around on the sofa for so long, just voting and cultivating strong opinions and arguing with people, that after Trump got elected, it just didn't seem like enough anymore. We had to do something, participate in something, and Indivisible just rose up at the right time. The people who made this guide had no idea that it would turn into this whole activist movement.
Right.
But it did. People latched onto it, and they needed something to sort of hold on to make sense of what was going on and say, yes, I can do something, I can participate.
Well,
I think there is more recruiting going on now.
Well, and to get involved on a local level. We don't have to take on the big, huge, broad strokes of, because, I mean, there's a lot to take on. But if you can start, and Dripping Springs right now, we have a city council that we're trying to, get some new blood into. We're trying to, work on our school board candidates. We're working from, our local perspective. It doesn't matter what party you're in. We have an issue right now with growth. Dripping Springs, Driftwood is exploding. And, we have water issues, we have traffic issues. Those are important to us, and so we've grown really, in the last couple months. We had our little town hall with over 250 people trying to get into Flores restaurant to see Roger Williams, which he didn't show for, but he did show for a North Hayes Republican invite only at a church, where after our town hall that we held, 70 people went and lined up in front and very respectfully just held up their signs as he drove in. And it kind of threw everyone off guard because, we had every constable and sheriff from Hayes County showing up, But, it ended up being a very, very good place, for people to kind of see and come and see what we can do as a collective voice and in our communities. And, when you have a District 25 that starts south of Fort Worth, goes to Wimberley, and then a strip of East Austin, and nobody sees Roger Williams. We've never.
I have. I live in Manor, and I've seen him.
Well,
I've gone to
we've asked to see him, and he wouldn't see us.
Right.
So
I've gone to some.
I've gone out there where he's gone to the meetings. Now, let me go ahead and preface something that you made a comment on, where you had a meeting where he was invited,
yes.
Correct? And then he had one that same day at invite only. So so now that day, if I remember correctly, he had two meetings. He had two town halls. One where I think you guys were standing out, and then there was another one because I saw some of the postings on those events. So were those the one I understand that you guys had? It was you invited him to attend, and so he didn't get to show up, or he didn't show up, and there was no representative from his office that attended also. So, but he did have at least one other one that same day. And like I said, you mentioned one of them being invite only. The other one, I think there was another one just outside of the area that where that meeting was at, if I remember correctly.
I don't think so.
Because one of my friends, who actually the chairman, the TCRP was at that one, and I think it was closer to Austin than the other meeting, if I remember correctly. So
I can guarantee you that if any of these Congress people had an open, non-invitation only event, that we would have been there.
Absolutely.
Well, no, he did have those, but I believe it was two on that one. That one I may need to be corrected on. But.
I organize for some of my other groups, political leaders to come, and it can be tough. You have to plan months in ahead. I just had a TARA meeting, and we had Ken Paxton, the Attorney General, there. It took a couple tries, a couple different angles, but we have to do that. So, are you guys giving them a chance? Are you trying to book months in ahead, or is it like a last minute thing? I know with Flores, he did meet with a number of the people in his office that same day, right? But he had something else that evening. So I'm trying to wonder, are we trying to intentionally
No,
have them
here's-
not show up, or
Well,
you're
he actually at one point had talked to one of the constables that talked to
You're
another.
talking about Williams. in this case.
Yes, Williams, excuse me, and was thinking about coming. But I think and he, not wanting to be in front of a bunch of people that he didn't know the reaction,
Well, if you watch the media coverage, you see these posters of congressmen and a lot of yelling and some disrespectful
That happens on
events.
both
I think congressmen should face the music, right? They should face their
They were
constituents.
elected to work
right?
for us.
But I can see on their side that they could be a little
Well,
bit
they-
apprehensive to face that.
They want to control their message.
Right.
You
Sure.
know, it's exactly the reason that Bill Flores did his telephone in town hall. Right.
Yeah,
So,
I
you
was
know,
on that. Yeah.
But they don't want to walk into a situation where they don't know what's going to happen. They don't have control over the questioners. They can't control the message. If they talk and they give an answer, then people can respond to that, and you get that public reaction. You don't get that in a telephone town hall. As far as it being last minute, well, like the first one, yeah, it was last minute. We had just pretty much gotten started.
Exactly.
So we were expecting there to be town hall meetings, and there were no town hall meetings. So we were upset about that, and we made some of our own and invited them to show up.
And
For
we
the
asked
second
for town
one,
hall meetings immediately.
yeah.
Right. As soon as we got started, we're like, when are you going to have a town hall? And he said, March or April, we'll let you know. All right. What do you mean March or April? There's important things going on, and we want to meet with you now, and there's a congressional recess where you're supposed to be meeting with your constituents. We want you to meet right now in February. And so he did meet with individuals, both in his Austin office and in the Bryan College Station office. That day that he met with people in Austin was the night, that night was when we tried to schedule. And we intentionally moved the town hall in Bryan College Station. We were supposed to have it on Monday, President's Day. And we found out, right as we were planning that Bill Flores was having a meeting with the Burleson County Republican Party on that Monday. So we moved ours to Sunday night to try to accommodate, knowing that he wouldn't be able to make it because he already had something that he was promoting on Monday. Didn't matter, right? He wasn't going to do it, period. He was not going to meet with us. No, and I personally believe, in Flores' case, if I gave him years of advance notice, he wouldn't do it. Because that's just not the way he wants to interact with his constituents. That's my understanding.
No, it can be tough, and sometimes you have to know his staff, and you got to get an angle in there, because if it's just somebody out of the blue, it can be difficult.
And coming back to Indivisible, that's what we're doing. As we go, we are learning, and we're trying to share these different lessons with the rest. There's a lot of people out there, not just Democrats, that are scared. They don't know what's happening. They want to know how to contact, their representative, how to find who their representative is. Before all this came down, I didn't know who all my reps were and how I could get a hold of them and what to call them about. So I think Indivisible has really, really helped give a meeting place for people who are looking to get involved, who maybe never have been before.
So are you also, is Indivisible going after not only Republicans, but are they also going after Democrats who are not responding? Now is it at the national, because you mentioned at the school board.
Right.
You guys were going down to the local level on that part where you're seeing people that may need to be a change. So is there Indivisible 10? Oh, good. Then I get to talk to them about District 46. So anybody who knows the House District 46 is Donna Dukes, who's been our longest running person.
Yeah.
We are still waiting for our town hall to happen again with her so she can appear, but obviously because of her illness and her legal issues that were going on, then great, and I can go ahead and talk to them about doing something. Because she won't listen to the Republicans. I can tell you this much right now. She will not listen to any Republicans whatsoever. And we can, let's see what we can do.
I think anybody that doesn't want transparency and truth, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, we don't want you. We're
Right.
done.
We want good governance.
Right.
Right. We want devoted public servants who are there to serve the people, regardless of what side they're on.
So are you willing to admit that you voted for Republicans and Libertarians during the election cycle?
I have never voted for a Republican, and I've never voted for a Libertarian. I have called up the House Speaker here and thanked him a number of times for being like a sane, Joe Strauss, a sane, reasonable Republican, and exercising good leadership in the legislature, even though I don't agree with him on everything.
So in 2018, we should at least be able, since you're mentioning about being governance, being the right people in that area, then we should be able to at least expect one Republican on your ballot. this coming this
If I
2018.
could vote in the Dripping Springs City Council, I'd be voting for a Republican right now. So
Well, those are nonpartisan.
We're
But
nonpartisan
I'm just saying
group.
he's a-
Right.
So,
No, I
I mean,
understand that part, but I'm talking about as individuals. I'm not talking about you as Indivisible as a group. I'm talking about, or as a whole. I'm talking about individuals.
as an individual, if I were in District 17, say if a moderate Republican ran against Bill Flores, I would absolutely vote for him or her. Absolutely.
So you would join the prime. So you would actually vote in the Republican primary.
Those are the only races that matter. The
Well,
primaries,
still-
because of gerrymandering,
Right.
they're the only races that matter. All of the decisions are made in the primary. So even in the Republican or Democratic primary, you are choosing your elected official based on the votes of like 12,000 people.
Right. And then after that, you have an additional 100,000 people or more that decide on whether or not they're either going to vote straight ticket, both left or right.
Yeah.
And then those that decide to go ahead and vote independently that are going to decide who is going to represent that district. And for me, on that end, is probably going to be the biggest part when you have the general election. Primaries are primaries. You can get anybody in there, and you can probably have, I mean, Travis County is the best example. We had a chairman that was the worst libertarian. Okay.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking
Yes,
about.
I do.
Okay. Who endorsed other libertarians, and as I tell people, who was the one person that the news indicated that was single and had teddy bears and dolls in his living room. I'll leave it as that. And he supported all these different libertarians. Libertarians walked away from him. All the candidates said, thanks.
Yeah.
And they did this. Okay. But we have those type of situations. So the primary may not be the best example. You can probably push for the one that you want to get. But when it's all said and done, you're either going to have, and I can't say the two choices, because if you ever guys watch South Park?
Oh, of course.
You know the recent ones that they had. You had two choices. You had a turd sandwich and another one. I won't mention the other one, but you're gonna have to choose between one or the other. And if the one that's a Democrat or Libertarian may not be the best choice, then you have to make a choice. Do you want to go ahead and vote for the worst person, or do you want to go ahead and vote for someone that's gonna hopefully be okay and go from there?
See, that's not what's going on in congressional districts and state house districts, though.
It's happening
The
locally.
decision has already been made for you.
It's happening locally, though. That's the thing. It's happening locally, and even then,
How is it happening locally? If you look at all
I'll
these,
give you a good example.
Hang on a second. If you look at these congressional races, if you look at the state house races, the way that the district maps have been drawn, it's almost guaranteed that one side will win. There is only a single competitive congressional district in the entire state of Texas. 54% of the state house districts were uncontested races.
Okay.
You pretty much know how it's going to turn out once the primary is done. You would have to get an enormous swing of voters in order to change one of these seats from one side to the other. I mean, they're typically winning on the order of like 15 to 20% in Republican districts and upwards of like 30 to 35% in Democratic districts.
So let me share a story with you. I ran against Donna Dukes. Okay, the first Hispanic, first Latino, first Republican to run against her. She's a criminal, quote unquote. Sorry, allegedly, because she's still under indictment. I'm sorry.
Staff members turned her in for illegally using campaign funds.
Yeah. Okay, she's got 13 felony convictions or charges against her. She said, if I win, I will go ahead and walk away. What did everybody do? The majority of the people voted straight ticket. Why? Because they were worried about the national election. Two, they said we don't want a Republican in there. And three, we had people in East Austin that said, she's my color. If that ain't racist, I don't know what is. And I was the most sensible person on the ballot. So we're gonna have people that are gonna say, well, we're gonna, as a group of that's indivisible, that's saying we want transparency, we want what's right, and we want governance. Then it's got to be, you got to look at everybody as a whole and not be able to say, yeah, you got to look at everybody as a whole.
We do. That's where we're coming at.
Right.
That's what we're saying.
I'm saying as individuals.
I would vote for a Republican. I'll say it. If they were the most qualified and truthful and transparent and
you got that right. You got that.
I would.
If you go to talk to people within the Indivisible movement,
yeah,
there are a lot of people who are not happy with the Democratic Party.
Yeah,
we're not necessarily party together.
There's a big change on that one. I mean, you can write we don't have an hour. I mean, we got 2 hours to go and explain everything that's going on with the Democrat Party. We can also take an hour and a half to talk about what's wrong with the Republican Party.
And pigeonhole Indivisibles as all Democrats, because that is not the case.
I'll tell you right now that in the town hall that we had in Bryan College Station, we had 100 people there, and one gentleman who drove all the way from Waco to be at that town hall because we weren't planning. Nobody had stepped up to plan a town hall in Waco. And he said, look, I voted Republican my entire life until this election, and I am very concerned about the direction of this country now, and I am actively working with Indivisible against Trump and against the authoritarian agenda.
Oh, yeah. And we have friends that did the exact same thing.
Now, that doesn't, now, is that the minority? Is that the majority of Indivisible? Probably not. No, probably the majority of folks in Indivisible are more liberal. That's true, but it doesn't mean that there are not, and we welcome people who are saying, I'm concerned about the direction of the country. I am against the agenda that's being proposed. We're trying as hard as we can. I mean, if we weren't trying hard, I would have kicked off Anthony a while back already, right? We're trying hard to say, look,
I wouldn't blame you,
right? Hey, it's just at the same time we're like, come on, Anthony, we're not here to debate endlessly. We're here to take action. We're here to because we tend to agree that, look, defending the Affordable Care Act is better than repeal and replace in this case. Okay, the majority of us feel that way. If you want to debate ad nauseum about whether the Affordable Care Act is horrible and it's going down the tubes, let's do that somewhere else, because we're here to try to organize and take action to defend the Affordable Care Act, because we feel that it's the best thing we've got versus what's being put forward right now in that instance. And we had that debate. Right.
Well, I'm an independent thinker. I do lean to the right. I would say I'm more libertarian than conservative. And so I like independent thought. And when I try to listen to your message, it seems like it's just anti-Trump, and it seems to tout the Democratic line on everything. Right? You're against ACA, and that's it. ACHA, but you don't really provide any other background, and you don't ever say what you're for. It's just you're against a lot of things. And that's what I'm trying to.
To a certain extent, that may stem from the fact that the Indivisible Guide and the Indivisible Agenda is against the Trump agenda. It's stating itself from the start as what it's against, not what it's for.
Well, we're on defense right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the fact. I mean, the Republicans are in control of both houses of Congress, and they have the White House, and it's.
But they don't have a super majority in the Senate.
And the Supreme Court, and the State House, and the governorship, and the Attorney General. I mean,
there's a fire hose of stuff coming at us, and I know that a lot of people are feeling kind of like tired and burnt out at this point, because we feel like we're trying to like fight thing after thing after thing after thing after thing. You can't be in a position to be advocating for something when you're so busy fighting against all of this terrible stuff that's coming down the pike. Yeah. So, I mean, I would love to sit here and talk about the things that I'm for. I can't speak for Indivisible. But we're just busy fighting things that we just find horrible. I mean, one thing that I'm trying to do is, for the state of Texas, is we're getting an organization together to really try and get rid of partisan gerrymandering in the state of Texas. There's an example of a nonpartisan issue that we are for, and we are actively advocating, that we want conservatives to come on board. We want libertarians to come on board. This is something that everybody should be able to agree on, is that legislators should not be in the business of drawing their own maps.
Well, here is your saving grace, and probably the best thing, because Trump won. In 4 years, there'll be another census, and if Trump turns out to be as bad as we feel, you'll have a Democratic Congress, and they will redraw the lines. So every 10 years.
I don't want that.
And
No,
well,
exactly.
you have to do. They do it every 10 years.
Yeah.
No,
So-
but we don't have to do things that way. We can change the way that the maps are drawn.
So what is Indivisible looking for in regards to gerrymandering?
let me stop right there, because gerrymandering and redistricting has nothing to do with the president or U.S. Congress.
Yeah,
it has to
it's a
do with the
state
state legislature.
Right.
First of all, okay. So, and across the board, I mean, right now, even though California has instituted a redistricting commission,
As a nonpartisan,
nonpartisan
independent redistricting commission.
they ended up with gerrymandered Democratic districts, and we're against that. Just as we're against these Republican gerrymandered districts in Texas.
They're still better than they used to be.
But
They're a lot better than they used to be.
but in both cases, it's
run by the state.
It's
And-
elected
And they're drawn
officials.
so
it's elected
weirdly.
officials choosing who the voters
Well, yeah,
are.
they're
Well, it's
systematic
not-
voting.
you could
If you
actually
look at the
maybe
districts in
see your-
California, though, they're not so
Well, I
strange
think
anymore.
Lloyd Doggett has like changed where it like goes down 35, on east and west side of 35. But I just had a comment on your Affordable Care Act, okay? My sister,
Dang it.
single, retired on Social Security. All right. She went through the marketplace, and her premium every month was going to be over $1,000. And that was with very little help from subsidy. but she's a single woman, retired teacher, fixed income on $1,000 a premium every month that she was going to have to pay. You know, bless her, she's passed on to the other side, but, you know, there are a lot of people. I work at a grocery store where, you know, I get politicking with my customers and stuff. And there's a lot of people who are disgruntled with the current situation in the Affordable Health Care Act right now. You know, they see on TV, oh, you can get it for $200 or $75, but yet in reality, when they apply for it, it's twice as much. And then I did an experiment myself. I created a little profile of myself. And let's say I put my little profile into Comanche County. Well, in Comanche County, I could get the $75 premium with subsidy. But I also had several different insurance companies I could work with. Where here in Austin, I put in my little profile. My only choice was Blue Cross Blue Shield. And, you know, it's like an exorbitant price for it. And see, there's the discrepancies there. You know, why do you have a single person out in, you know, in a less populated area for X amount of dollars and a higher populated area? I know that, you know, it's more expensive to live in Austin and all that, but I still think that it should be somewhere where the prices are more close together than they are $75,000.
I think we all agree.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
I can't speak to the details of
Yeah.
how the
But,
ACA
you know,
is
if you
implemented,
ever, try it yourself, try a little experiment.
We all have to have insurance. We're all
Yeah.
fighting the same thing.
I don't know
But
a lot
it's
of-
just the price of the premiums.
No, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think it's important to also point out when you're talking about the ACA is that Texas is one of the states that fought tooth and nail not to implement it. You get better
Absolutely.
outcomes in the states that have actually set up their own state exchanges.
And expanded Medicare.
And expanded Medicaid.
Yeah.
It's expanded Medicaid on that part.
I can't, I can't say too much because, you know, when I got diagnosed with my breast cancer, I was put on Medicaid, and, you know, I'm still on it. So I can't say much about the Medicaid program, but it's been a blessing to me.
It's a single payer.
Yeah, and it's.
Well, no, not well. Yeah, you're right. It's the state of
But
Texas that's paying for it. You're right.
it's just the discrepancies in it. And then the other thing that really makes me mad is all the bills that get passed and stuff. Like there was one bill, I think it was the Affordable Health Care Act, that had all that stuff in it for the Alaska pipeline and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they put, you know, okay.
It was all the
well,
pork.
I'll vote for it if you could put my pipeline in.
Yep.
What the hell does a pipeline have to do with affordable health care?
Absolutely.
Just to get somebody's vote, you're going to put this thing in there and shove it through. That's another thing that I believe myself that needs to be stopped, is packing the bills with everything else.
Come join us in our Indivisible movement.
Oh, I'm too radical for you.
I don't. We need you. We need you.
You know, it's like I watch these protests and stuff, and kids that wear the black masks and all that out there.
That's not
And
us.
somebody, no, but somebody goes over there and just simply asks them, "What are you out here protesting? What do you stand for?" And all they can say is "F you," you know.
That's not Indivisible.
And I had a problem. I saw that you went to the Women's March. In the Women's March, I had a problem with some of the profanity, like what Madonna said up there on there. It's right
was
to free
embarrassing.
speech. It was embarrassing
It
to
was.
the movement.
It was.
You know, and it's just sad because I see this one lady that looks like she has a baby attached to her running around in Washington. It's like, come on.
It was very peaceful.
I think we all run into trouble when we start judging movements based on
Yeah.
the crazy people that we see here and there, and
Well,
the people that get put on TV. It's
and
a
I've
way
been
of
watching that thing
caricaturing
from
whole
Berkeley.
We
movements.
got the crazy person over here. So we're okay.
From Berkeley, you know, I've been watching that thing
You
from
got your
Berkeley
token?
and that Antifa group or whatever it is. What they did to that little rally that they had over there, okay, we can agree to disagree, but you don't have to throw cherry bombs in bottles and hit people on the head with bike glocks.
No, yeah.
My saying is stop the hate, stop the violence, and stop the killing. So with that, I'm walking off the stage and I have all the videos. I figured out what it is. So
Okay,
we're
you
ready
can
to
play
go.
something.
So basically, what you're saying is that the people that are, like, for example, the groups that Mrs. Pokey was talking about, they're not part of Indivisible.
No.
The
Not that we know of, no.
We are. We
I mean, if
are.
Black Bloc has been
are-
around for a long time.
Yeah, and
In
we're
fact,
about
one of the
respect.
tenets of Indivisible is that we will not be doing anything that is illegal. That we're not sitting here trying to take illegal actions and get arrested. That's
No.
not what Indivisible is about. Indivisible is about what I said, is holding our representatives accountable, making sure that we call them, that we protest to them to state our opinions, that we that we are able to talk to the media as we can to say, hey, this is not right. What the way that Representative Flores is ignoring us and voting differently from the needs of his district. This is, in our case, Flores, but
Right.
For each of our representatives. I mean, that's what we're about. Not being disrespectful, not spitting on people, not throwing cherry bombs, not wearing masks, not being profane. Now, can some people who claim to be an Indivisible step over the line sometimes? Maybe. But that's their choice. It's not that Indivisible is saying you should go do this.
No, we're not that.
Indivisible as an organization is saying keep it within the line. Be respectful, be adamant, be there and be present and voice your opinion, but do so in a respectful way, not in a way that crosses the boundaries of the law or respect of others.
And it's not like this is some kind of top-down organization.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, all of these Indivisible groups have sprung up spontaneously all over the place. They all have their own character.
In spite of the stories that George Soros is paying all of this, I can tell you that I've never received any money from George Soros, and nobody I've ever met in Indivisible has gotten any money from George Soros. That is a bold lie. It's a bold-faced lie that any of us are being paid by George Soros. Okay?
Well, because in Texas we have all the money. That's why. You go to any other state. You go to any other state. That's a different story. Let me say something about the Medicaid program. You talked about the expansion of Medicaid. So my understanding about the Texas Medicaid expansion that they were talking about when it came to the Affordable Care Act was a block grant that was going to give X amount of money to the state of Texas to help create new programs. Now, the reason why I say this, just to let you guys know, I used to work with the state of Texas, Kansas, Oklahoma, and New Mexico with the Medicaid program. So I'm fairly familiar with how they operated their systems. New Mexico had their state program that expanded Medicaid to allow single adults, both male and female, to apply for the system. One of the problems that came up, and this happened actually prior to them getting the block money, is that they ran out of money. They started getting everybody in. They set it up where you were going to pay, where the qualified applicants were going to pay a monthly premium charge so that they can get the services. They would end up paying X amount of dollars to have emergency services, or to go see the doctor. They would get, or to the hospital for inpatient stays. They would pay X amount of dollars. They were hoping to use that money to go ahead and help continue the funding of the state program. They ran out of money.
Well, yeah.
Because nobody was paying for it. None of the people that qualified were not paying. They're paying the monthly premiums. They were not paying for it. Then what happened is that at that point they still stayed on the Medicaid rolls for about 6 months, and then they had to reapply. And they still stayed on there because they were still using the program, but they were never paying back what was quote unquote owe or due in order to keep the system up and running. When the block grants came in, all the money was already spent for New Mexico, and they end up actually having to change some of the services that they were offering for behavioral systems, because in New Mexico, if you've ever been to New Mexico, you understand that they need a lot more money on behavioral than anything else. Don't know why, but it happens. So they had to cut down on services, which ended up affecting people outside of Deming, Las Cruces, and even Albuquerque, where people that needed to have services in Albuquerque, it's a 2-3 hour drive just to get there. They weren't able to get those services, and they had to end up cutting off some of the fees, where some of the outpatient services hospitals were getting, for ER visits, they were getting 75% or 75 cents on the dollar when I was there. After everything came in, they were getting anywhere between 20 to 30%. And they changed the whole system, and they were like, we gotta save the money. State of Texas did now to Texas also, they did the exact same thing. They started whittling down, where 30% on the inpatient stays they were going to get on average, and they ended up dropping it down to maybe 20-25%, and outpatient stays were almost like 10 to 15, if I remember correctly. And then they changed the format in such a way where if you had a person that got sick, that was elderly, according to the Affordable Care Act, they made some additional changes where you had to go in and out based on every illness that you had.
It's not a good system.
And it's not.
But it's what we have, and I think that, it's kind of, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater sort of mentality, right. You work with what we have, and if people could work together, if there could be that magical thing that could happen where they could actually work for us,
I
we could probably come up with something.
I don't understand why public safety and public education are legitimate government functions, but public health is not.
Right.
It does not make any sense to me. It seems to me to be a burden on business that they have to provide health care to their workers. Mm-hmm. And if we could spread the risk over the entire population, then we could cover the people who are sick. I think it's that simple when it comes down to it. So we can have these systems where we're trying to figure out how to put this pot of money here and this pot of money there, and some of it's public and some of it's private, and it's just a huge kludge. And I think everybody knows that it doesn't work.
Well, the problem with ACA is it only focuses on insurance side of things. It doesn't lower the cost of service.
That's all it was allowed to do.
Yeah.
Well, if
it couldn't, they couldn't pass anything differently at the time. Here's the thing: is I don't know all of the details about how Medicare and Medicaid work in these different states to tell you anything about what you just talked about. What I can tell you is the reading I've done seems to indicate that the states that did accept the Medicaid expansion were able to cover more people than the states that didn't. And a large portion of the people who obtained coverage after the ACA passed were because of the expansion of Medicaid.
They were covered, but it's unsustainable. Eventually, yes, the federal government is reimbursing 100% for the first couple years. Then eventually, the states are going to have to come up with the rest of the money.
Our entire healthcare system is unsustainable.
Exactly. The whole thing is.
That's why we need to lower the cost. We need to introduce more competition, more doctors.
I know that's your pet. I know that's your pet.
And if we lower the cost, then insurance will be lower.
It shouldn't be a for-profit business.
That's the bottom line.
It shouldn't be for-profit.
Well,
how much of the situation we're in is because insurance companies are some of the largest corporations in America, making a huge amount of money.
Get rid of the insurance company.
Right?
When you get the insurance company in there, all costs go up.
Exactly.
Just like with car insurance.
Exactly.
They ask you get a wreck, is insurance paying it? And they charge you 3 times as much because insurance pays for it. Get it out of there. People pay for it out of pocket, like elective surgery, LASIK. LASIK has gone down in 20 years. I got it 15 years ago, and it's still about $2,000.
And it's great if you can afford it, but not everybody can afford it.
Well, if it was cheaper.
I don't think you can compare elective surgery to things that you have to have.
Like
there's inelastic demand for a lot of healthcare, and you have a lot of consumers who are not informed.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have a perfectly efficient market where you have people who are capable of making informed decisions. They don't have medical degrees. They're not going to be able to walk into a doctor's office and know whether or not
that's why you have certification of doctors at the state level, so that when you go to a doctor, you know he's certified.
Well, that doesn't mean that one doctor is better than another, or you're getting surgery, or you need to know which hospital you're going to go to. You're going to put all of that again on the back of individual consumers in order to make these informed choices about life and death decisions. This is what we're supposed to be talking to doctors about. I mean, I don't see why we need to reinvent the wheel and try and do everything on a market-based system. You can look all over the world and see healthcare systems that work. Their people are covered, they're happy with their care, and they're not an entirely free market-based system. You have places like Switzerland where you have a hybrid like we have here with the ACA. It works much better. There are places like France, which is entirely socialized. They have great medicine. Everybody there
loves it. And if you wanted a good doctor, you go to the American doctor, not the public doctor.
If you have lots of money.
If you have the money to
do it,
exactly.
And that's where we are today.
That's the problem.
That's what we do here
half
now.
of this country is they can't afford a $400 unexpected bill. Right.
Well,
they're not
if the
going to be
costs
able to
were
go
lower,
for the a la carte.
if we had more doctors, we had more competition for services like we do with elective surgeries, then you can afford to visit a doctor for $30.
Are the doctors going to take less money?
I want to go back to
Indivisible. All we're trying to do is
exactly just say, look, we're not going to solve the ACA.
Yeah. All right, yeah, let's
we're
go.
We're not going to solve the ACA, but here's the thing: is that we want representation that is more representative of our actual opinions. Austin, Texas, is gerrymandered to make sure that we are not represented in 5 out of 6 districts.
No, and I agree with you with the gerrymandering, but I think you'll have your best chance in 4 years. Let's play one of these videos. What I want to ask you, what are your media sources? What do you guys, what media outlets do you typically watch? And I got a few potential jokes.
I watch not so much. I don't tend to watch TV news.
Good man. Good man.
I do a lot
Where
of.
do you get
I
your
watch
news?
Vice. I watch Vice News. I do a.
I mean, on politics, though, how do you get your information?
I read
CNN, MSNBC.
Well, I mean, I watch, a little bit MSNBC, CNN, Fox if I can handle it for more than 2 minutes.
I never watch Fox, but I do watch MSNBC and CNN. So let's just play.
I'll read a lot of different stuff.
Okay, let's play the MSNBC clip, if you can.
Okay.
This is short. short thing.
And I listen to a lot of NPR. I read a lot of The Guardian, the Wall Street Journal when I can get into an article. Usually, I don't have a subscription, so I can usually only read the first blurb of it. New York Times.
So this was Saturday night.
Financial Times.
And they made a lot of jokes about all the media. Let's see if she can get it going.
Okay.
Chill about Trump's tax returns. I don't know what you think you'll find in there, but there isn't going to be a line item that just says bribes from Russia. That's not how it works. You're going to be like, oh, I found the 1040 USSR. It doesn't work like that. You're the liberal news outlet. Like, we dress the same. I look like a melanin version of Chris Hayes. I want to root for you guys, but you're turning into conspiracy theorists every night. You're like, the Russians hacked our elections. The Russians hacked our elections. Meanwhile, everybody in Latin America and the Middle East is like, oh, a foreign government tampered with your elections? What is that like? Do tell, MSNBC. Just pump the brakes. We're only on day 100. By the end of the year, you guys all gonna have tinfoil hats and jars of urine all over your desks. Now,
so you guys got to hear it on TV Land. We couldn't see that part here. Please. So what was on the clip?
Well, he was making fun of MSNBC that they were getting more extremists. That Rachel Maddow is constantly harping on Trump's tax returns, and even him. So, what do you think about Trump's tax returns?
Show them. I mean, show them.
We need. We have to see his tax returns.
Transparency. Truth.
I heard for years and years and years and years and years and years about how terrible it was that Hillary Clinton had this charitable foundation, and there were all these terrible conflicts of interest, and she couldn't be trusted, and she was lying and deceiving. And here we have Trump, who has more conflicts of interest than I think Hillary Clinton could manage to acquire in her entire lifetime, all balled up into one guy. And then all of his family members have all this conflict of interest. He's got a private club down in Florida that's basically his palace where he goes and hangs out with his paying guests. I mean...
But is it legally required?
No, it's not legally required.
Is it at the moment
it's
legally
required.
Culturally should required. It be? I believe it should be, because we're supposed to be electing a person who is the leader of our nation, and we are entrusting that person to make decisions for the entire nation. How do we know that he's not making decisions just for his own private benefit?
Don't you want
the
to
only
know?
way to know so
I would
is
love
to
to
see
know.
his tax returns.
I did examine Clinton's tax returns, and I do, but most people don't. They don't really clear. But I know why Trump doesn't. I'm a real estate investor, and in real estate you get to write off depreciation on your houses. So that looks like a loss, but it really isn't. But you can offset your taxes. So that's
making an
politically. He's a real estate guy.
You're making an assumption you know why he doesn't want to show his taxes.
Well, I wouldn't either, because it looks politically bad. People that don't understand the tax code will look at it.
What does it matter? He's already elected.
Well, he's doing it for political reasons.
Now he's trying to change the tax code, and from the stories that I'm reading, a lot of them seem to be in ways that are going to benefit him, but we don't know that because we don't know what his holdings are.
But he's been elected. He's done all the federally mandated disclosures that he had to.
You would have never accepted that from Hillary Clinton.
But it ain't right. But it ain't right.
You would never have accepted that from a Clinton or any Democrat whatsoever.
Ever.
Absolutely.
I'm one of those guys that don't really care, to be honest with you. I'm going to be honest with you.
You okay with Jared and Ivanka being, his advisors?
If that's going to help him out. If that's going to help us, so we
without being
elected.
elected.
I don't like the nepotism myself,
but
they are a
you
calming
were okay
force.
with the Clinton Foundation. You never complained about it.
Yeah. I didn't complain about it.
Okay, well, you're consistent.
So the day after Trump met with the leader of China in Mar-a-Lago instead of the White House, then China allows Ivanka to sell, allows the rights to sell stuff in China.
Okay.
That just happens. This just happens to be coincidence. And it's something it's enriching him and his family.
That part I can say, okay, great, but how is that going to affect his tax returns? How is knowing who he donates to?
It's enriching. It's nepotism. It's enriching his family. Abusing his position of power to make his family richer is not the right thing to do. It may be legal under the current law. It is not the right thing to do.
He is the self-described king of debt. I think the American people deserve to know who he's in debt to. Mm-hmm. He owes people lots of money all over the world.
You want to try number 4? I want to get the Russian thing in here.
Please get to Russia.
She can do it. If not, we can just talk about it.
So do you guys actually think that Russia actually hacked the systems to go ahead and change the election so that they can win, or do you feel that it was more along them providing some type of influence in regards to news that were going out or postings that were going online?
I think they wanted Trump elected because they thought it would be good for them.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I mean when it comes to that portion.
What do you think that
But
their
do you think there was a
involvement
collusion with
as
Trump's
individuals,
campaign?
okay,
I
as
don't
individuals,
know
not as
that there was a
indivisible, but as-
collusion with his campaign. There are things that seem to point that direction. We don't know because we haven't seen anything. But I think there was a definite push to discredit Hillary. And they looked at both of their allegedly emails, and the only ones that were ever released were from Hillary. And I mean,
because of that.
what about Flynn? I mean, does this not bother you guys?
Here's the way I look at it on that end. Did they hack the system? Did they hack into the computer systems to go ahead and change votes?
Somebody did.
Somebody did.
Not necessarily.
When
it came to that part,
Well, Podesta's password was password. Anybody could hack that.
We're talking about the voting booths. When it comes to going into the voting booth, did they go in there?
Right.
and
Nobody
say-
changed any votes.
There was nothing that shows that part. Now, when it comes to
Do we have
providing-
do we have a paper trail that we can look
Yeah,
at
we don't.
in Travis County?
No, because in
You
Travis
know,
County,
would
they'll
you
print them out.
Do we have a
go into
paper
great
trail that
detail,
we can
but
go back
would
to
you
and
like to know
say
why
this
that
is how
happens?
people voted?
Would you like to know why that happens? Because the head that does all that stuff doesn't even want to do that part.
'Cause it's
They've
too
gone to
much. It would
court
take
because
too
of
long.
that. Laura Presley has gone to court on that whole thing because she feels that there was some changes in the voting booth that had her lose against Greg Casar, and it's gone to court, and they don't want to change it, and that's going to be on them. Okay, so. If we're going to be saying, on this part that people in a heavily Democrat area in Travis County voted for Trump, that the system changed it to go ahead and vote to have votes for Trump on that end. Which in here in Travis County, I don't see that happening really that much. But when it comes to influencing, when it comes to news, I could see that happening with Washington doing that part.
How will we know? I
Well,
mean,
we won't know.
that's the thing. We
Then we
need
won't
truth
know.
and transparency.
That's exactly the point. We're trying to bring this back to Indivisible. Here's the thing. The person in charge of investigating that in Congress is the person who had spent millions of dollars investigating Benghazi and had 46, if I'm not mistaken, 46 full-time staffers investigating Benghazi, has 7 part-time staffers supposedly investigating the Russian collusion in the election, and isn't really putting an effort in. So how do we know if the people in the government who are supposed to be following that stuff up are being completely partisan and not doing so because it isn't in their own best interest? Is it in the interest of the United States? Should we as citizens be concerned about it? I believe we should.
Then what we do is that we go back to the states.
you and I don't have the power to do so.
Right.
We
do
depend
have the power in the
on
state-
Jason
at the state
Chaffetz
level.
to do so.
But we have the power at the state level. At the state level, we can make that change, and we can start saying that we need to look at what's going on to see what's happening in our own backyard, as opposed to what's going on in a different.
And that is Indivisible.
When you're
we're gonna give you guys
well,
some basic.
Go back to Indivisible. But if you're talking about the influence of a foreign government in our elections, that is a federal role. I'm sorry. That's not a state job.
So we want to thank everybody for being here. We've got only 2 seconds left. You guys have a great week. This is incredible.
That was quick.
I know this.
Well,
I gotta tell you, this actually goes by really fast.
I want to say about the Russians.
Hey, we don't have to talk to you anymore, man.